The Grand Assembly Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of orbital station, a massive chamber built to hold representatives from 47 species. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that displayed the stars themselves, and floating platforms carried diplomats from dozens of worlds. This was the heart of galactic civilization, the place where the future of known space was decided. Daniel Cole stood at the human podium and looked across the assembly. He was 58 years old, gray at the temples, and had spent 30 years of his life in diplomatic service. He had negotiated trade deals, prevented wars, and built friendships across species lines. But today, he felt something cold settling in his chest. Today felt different. The High Arbiter, a tall with pale blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, raised his hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet. We now proceed to the final vote on Resolution 7741, the Sovereignty Limitation Act, announced. His voice carried no emotion. This resolution would place human military forces under direct council oversight, removing independent command authority from Earth government. The justification stands as recorded. Humanity is a young species, unpredictable in nature, and potentially dangerous to galactic stability. Daniel felt Lisa Warren shift beside him. She was his deputy, a sharp woman in her 40s who had served with him for 15 years. She leaned close and whispered, "They are really going to do this." "Yes," Daniel said quietly, "they are." He had seen it coming for months. The whispered conversations that stopped when humans entered the room, the subtle exclusions from planning meetings, the growing number of species who seemed nervous around human delegates. Fear had been building in the council for years, and today it would finally take form. The problem, Daniel knew, was that humanity had been too good at what they did. Human soldiers had saved colonies from the raiders. Human doctors had stopped plagues on worlds they had never visited before. Human engineers had rebuilt infrastructure across a dozen systems, and human commanders had led joint fleets to victory after victory, earning a reputation for tactical creativity that bordered on frightening. The galaxy had needed humanity, but needing someone and trusting them were very different things. Ambassador Cole said, "You may speak before the vote." Daniel stepped forward. The assembly watched him with hundreds of eyes of every shape and color. Some looked sympathetic, most did not. "High Arbiter honored representatives," Daniel began, keeping his voice calm. "I will not beg, I will not threaten, I will simply remind you of facts." He paused, letting the silence build. 11 years ago, the faced extinction when the Crimson Plague spread beyond containment. Human medical ships arrived within 6 days. We lost 400 doctors and nurses saving your people. We asked for nothing in return. No one spoke. 8 years ago, raiders attacked the merchant fleet, destroying 60% of your trading capacity in a single week. Human warships responded to your distress call. We lost 2 cruisers and 1,600 crew members protecting ships that were not ours. We asked for nothing in return. Trade Minister, a small with orange scales, looked down at his platform. 5 years ago, the rift opened and threatened to consume 3 inhabited systems. Human engineers worked alongside your scientists for 9 months to seal it. 47 of our people died in that effort. We asked for nothing in return. Daniel spread his hands. This is who humanity is. We help because it is right. We fight because others cannot. We give because we have the strength to give. And today, you will vote to call us dangerous. You will vote to chain us because our strength frightens you. He looked directly at. I understand fear. I do not blame you for feeling it, but I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember what you are choosing. He stepped back. The assembly remained silent. The vote will now proceed, said. One by one, the species cast their decisions. The holographic display above the chamber floor tracked the results in real time. Green lights for yes, red lights for no. The green spread like a disease across the board. Lisa Warren counted quietly under her breath. 31 yes, 13 no, 3 abstaining. The resolution passed. Daniel Cole stood motionless for a long moment. 30 years of service, thousands of lives given in defense of this alliance, and this was the answer. He reached up and removed the diplomatic sash from his shoulder. It was a simple piece of fabric, blue and gold, marking him as an official representative of humanity to the Galactic Council. He had worn it with pride for decades. He placed it gently on the podium. Very well, he said. His voice was quiet, but it carried across the silent chamber. We wish you peace." He turned and walked toward the exit. Lisa Warren followed. Behind them, the rest of the human delegation rose and joined the departure. No one shouted, no one argued, no one looked back. The chamber doors closed behind them. Within 1 hour, every human ship in Council space received a coded message. The order was simple: withdraw. All human vessels, stations, outposts, and personnel were to return to Earth-controlled territory immediately. Within 6 hours, the withdrawal was. Freighters abandoned their cargo runs. Military ships departed their patrol routes. Research stations went dark. Diplomatic offices closed their doors. The council watched with confusion. Some laughed. Ambassador Cole was throwing a tantrum, they said. The humans would be back once they calmed down. They needed the council as much as the council needed them. But the hours turned into days, and the days turned into weeks, and the human ships did not return. Lisa Warren stood beside Daniel Cole on the observation deck of the diplomatic transport as it crossed into Earth space. Behind them, the lights of Council territory grew smaller. "Do you think they understand what they have done?" Lisa asked. Daniel watched the stars in silence for a long moment. "No," he said finally, "but they will." The transport continued toward Earth, leaving the galaxy to discover what life looked like without humanity's help. The Council had made its choice. Now it would live with the consequences. 3 months had passed since the human withdrawal, and the cracks were beginning to show. Shaw sat in a small cafe on the outskirts of New Chicago, Earth, watching the news feed scroll across the wall display. He was 42 years old, broad-shouldered, with the tired eyes of a man who had seen too much. For 15 years, he had served as a liaison officer with the Border Fleet, working alongside alien commanders to keep the peace. Now he was reassigned to a desk job in planetary defense, and he spent his evenings watching the galaxy fall apart. The feed showed images of burning cargo ships, vessels, their distinctive orange hulls torn open by pirate weapons. The attack had happened 2 days ago in the shipping lanes, a route that human patrols had kept safe for 30 years. "Piracy increases for 3rd consecutive month," the news anchor reported. "Council security forces are struggling to cover the patrol routes formerly maintained by human vessels." Took a sip of his coffee. It was bitter. On a council station far from Earth, Trade Minister was learning the same lesson in a much more painful way. They had built their entire civilization around commerce. They were not warriors. They were merchants, traders, and brokers. Their ships carried goods across the galaxy, and their wealth came from the safe passage of those goods. But safe passage required protection, and protection had always come from the humans. Sat in his office, staring at the economic reports. Shipping losses were up 40%. Insurance costs had tripled. 3 major trading houses had declared bankruptcy in the past month alone. The economy was bleeding, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. His assistant entered the room. "Minister, the guild masters are demanding an emergency session. They want to know what the council is doing to restore security." "The council is doing nothing," said quietly. "The council voted to remove the only species willing to die for our cargo ships. What did they expect would happen?" He had voted against the Sovereignty Limitation Act. He remembered the moment clearly, the cold feeling in his stomach as he watched the green light spread across the display. He had tried to warn them. They had not listened. At the military command station, Admiral was having similar thoughts. She was old for her species, her blue skin faded to a pale gray, her 4 eyes clouded with age. But her mind remained sharp, and she could see the disaster unfolding. "Report," she said to her aide. 3 more border incursions this week, Admiral. Scout ships, testing our response times. They pulled back before our patrols could engage, but they are getting bolder." Nodded slowly. They had always feared human commanders. Human tactics were unpredictable, creative, and brutally effective. A human fleet commander might do something completely unexpected, turning a losing battle into a victory through sheer audacity. But the humans were gone now, and they knew it. "How long before they launch a real attack?" asked. "Intelligence estimates 6 to 8 months, Admiral. They are building up forces along the border." Closed her eyes. She had worked with human officers for decades. She had fought beside them, bled beside them, mourned beside them. And she had watched her own government vote to call them dangerous. She had tried to protest. Her objections had been noted and ignored. "Send a message to High Arbiter," she said. Tell him we need to reconsider our position on the human withdrawal. The High Arbiter has already rejected 3 such requests, Admiral. Then he is a fool, said, and we will all pay for his foolishness. The distress call came 3 weeks later. A mining colony on the Outer Rim, under attack by a pirate fleet of unusual size. 30 ships, heavily armed, overwhelming the colony's minimal defenses. In the old days, human rapid response ships would have been there within hours. They had maintained a network of fast cruisers throughout Council space, ready to respond to any emergency. It was something they did voluntarily, without payment or recognition. Now those ships were gone. Council reinforcements took 4 days to arrive. By then, the colony had been stripped of everything valuable. The miners who survived described the pirates as organized, professional, and completely unafraid. They knew no one was coming to help. The Council dismissed the incident as an isolated event. Adjustment pains, they called it. The galaxy was simply adapting to new circumstances. On Earth, Shaw watched the reports and shook his head. He met Lisa Warren for dinner that evening. She had left the diplomatic corps and now worked in the Earth Defense Ministry, helping to coordinate the new border security network. She looked tired but determined. They still think we are bluffing, said. They think we will come crawling back. They do not understand us at all, Lisa replied. They never did. They saw us as useful tools, not as partners. They took everything we gave them and then voted to call us monsters. Do you think we should go back, help them? Lisa was quiet for a moment. She thought about the 400 doctors who died saving lives, the 1,600 sailors who died protecting ships, the 47 engineers who died sealing the rift. She thought about the families who had received folded flags and empty condolences. No, she said finally. They made their choice. They told us who they think we are. Now they can live with the consequences of that choice. Nodded slowly. He did not enjoy watching the galaxy suffer, but he also did not enjoy being called dangerous by the very people humanity had died to protect. The silence continued. The withdrawal remained complete, and somewhere along the border, enemy commanders were studying their maps and planning their next move. The galaxy had rejected humanity's protection. Now it would learn what that protection had been worth. 8 months after the withdrawal, the war began. The struck at dawn Galactic Standard Time. 40 warships crossed the border and descended on the colony world of Prime. The defenders fought bravely but were overwhelmed within 6 hours. By noon, the flag flew over the planetary capital. 2 more worlds fell within the week. On Earth, Secretary General Burke watched the reports from her office in Geneva. She was 61 years old, silver-haired, with a face that had been hardened by decades of difficult decisions. She had opposed the withdrawal at first, believing that humanity had a duty to protect the innocent regardless of politics. But she had changed her mind. The Council had not simply rejected human help. They had called humanity dangerous. They had voted to strip away human sovereignty. They had treated 30 years of sacrifice as evidence of threat rather than friendship. Some lessons could only be learned through pain. Her aide entered the room. Madam Secretary, a diplomatic vessel has entered Earth space. They are requesting permission to land. Who is aboard? An envoy named, young, junior rank. The High Arbiter apparently did not think this mission warranted a senior diplomat. Burke smiled without humor. Even now, even with their worlds burning, the Council could not bring themselves to show humanity proper respect. Grant them landing permission, she said. I will meet with this envoy. Was young, barely past adulthood by standards. His blue skin was still bright, his 4 eyes still clear and unclouded. He had never seen war, never known loss, never understood the true cost of the choices his government had made. He stood before Secretary General Burke in the Great Hall of the Earth Parliament and delivered his message with all the confidence of youth. Secretary General, the Galactic Council formally requests the assistance of human military forces in repelling the invasion. We are prepared to offer significant concessions in exchange for your support. Burke studied him for a long moment. Concessions. Yes, the Sovereignty Limitation Act will be suspended for the duration of the conflict. Human commanders will be given operational authority over joint forces. Trade agreements will be revised in your favor. I see, Burke folded her hands on her desk. And after the war ends, what then? Hesitated. That would be subject to further negotiation. So the restrictions would return. The oversight would return. We would save your worlds, bury our dead, and then go back to being the species you voted to chain. The situation is complex, Secretary General. There are many factions within the Council, and not all of them supported the original resolution. But enough of them did, more than enough. Burke stood and walked to the window. Below, the city of Geneva spread out under a gray sky. Humans went about their daily lives, unaware of the conversation happening above them. Let me tell you a story, Envoy. 200 years ago, humanity first made contact with the galaxy. We were young, eager, and desperately hopeful. We wanted to prove ourselves worthy of a place among the stars, so we gave everything we had. We sent our best soldiers to fight in wars that were not our own. We sent our best doctors to heal wounds we did not cause. We sent our best engineers to build things we would never use. She turned back to face him. For 200 years we tried to earn your trust. We thought that if we gave enough, sacrificed enough, proved ourselves enough, you would finally accept us as equals. And what did we receive in return? A vote declaring us dangerous. A resolution stripping away our sovereignty. A clear message that no matter what we did, you would never see us as anything other than a threat to be controlled. Shifted uncomfortably. Secretary General, I understand your frustration, but millions of lives are at stake. They are not merciful conquerors. They will enslave entire populations. They will strip worlds bare. Surely you cannot stand by and watch innocent people suffer. Millions of humans died defending those innocent people, Burke said quietly. And your council voted to call us monsters anyway. Please, I am asking you, not as a representative of the council, but as a person who does not want to see his civilization destroyed. Help us. Burke was silent for a long moment. She could see the fear in his eyes, the desperate hope. He was young enough to believe that the right words could fix anything, that appeals to conscience always worked. She almost felt sorry for him. The answer is no, Envoy. Humanity will not send its military to fight your war. We will not sacrifice more of our children for a galaxy that despises us. Looked as if she had struck him. You are condemning billions to death. Your council condemned them when they voted 8 months ago. I am simply respecting that decision. The envoy left Earth that evening, his ship rising through the atmosphere and vanishing into the darkness between stars. He carried no promise of salvation, no hope of rescue, only the silence of a species that had finally learned to value itself. On the border of human space, Captain Amy Nelson commanded the patrol vessel Steadfast. She was 35 years old, calm and professional with 10 years of service in the Earth fleet. Her orders were clear: observe and report. Do not engage. Do not intervene. Her sensors detected scout ships crossing into Council territory. She logged the sighting and continued her patrol. 3 light years away, a Council world burned. And humanity watched in silence. 14 months after the withdrawal, the galaxy was breaking. 7 Council worlds had fallen to the 3 more were under siege. Refugee ships flooded the remaining safe zones, overwhelming stations and colonies that were never designed to handle such numbers. Food was running short. Medicine was running shorter. Hope was almost gone. High Arbiter stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The assembly hall that had once held representatives of 47 species now held barely 30. Some had been conquered. Others had simply stopped coming, too busy fighting for survival to waste time on politics. The green lights that had once condemned humanity now flickered with uncertainty. I address this assembly with a heavy heart, began. His voice was tired, his blue skin pale with stress. 14 months ago, we passed a resolution that we believed would protect our civilization from a potential threat. We were wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The humans were not our enemy. They were our shield. They asked for nothing in return for their sacrifices. They gave freely of their blood and treasure, and we repaid them with suspicion and fear. He paused, gathering himself. The Sovereignty Limitation Act was a mistake. I say this not to assign blame, but to acknowledge truth. We drove away the only species willing to stand between us and destruction, and now destruction has come. Trade Minister listened with a mixture of vindication and despair. He had warned them. He had begged them to reconsider, but warnings meant nothing now. The economy was in ruins. His people were starving on refugee stations. Being right was no comfort when everything was lost. Admiral watched from the military gallery. Her fleet had been shattered in 3 separate engagements with forces. Without human tactical creativity, Council commanders had fallen into predictable patterns. The enemy exploited those patterns ruthlessly. She had lost her son in the second battle. A promising young officer, barely 30 years old, killed when his ship was outmaneuvered by cruisers. He had died fighting a war that should never have happened. Far from the politics and the speeches, Dr. Price worked on a neutral research station near the galactic core. She was a human who had chosen to remain in Council space, continuing her studies of alien ecosystems. The station operated under independent charter outside Council jurisdiction, which meant she had been allowed to stay. She received a visitor one evening. Fleet Admiral, the desperate commander of what remained of Council forces, had traveled in secret to speak with her. "Dr. Price, I need your help," said. He was a species known for pride and stubbornness. The fact that he had come here hat in hand showed how bad things had become. "What can I do, Admiral? I am a biologist, not a soldier." "You are human. You have connections to Earth. I need you to carry a message." Studied him. His scales had lost their luster. His eyes were hollow with exhaustion. This was a being who had watched everything he cared about crumble around him. "What message?" "A request for help. A real request, not like the one our politicians sent. I am not asking humanity to save us because we deserve it. We do not deserve it. I am asking because if we fall, they will not stop. They will grow stronger. Eventually, they will threaten human space as well." Was quiet for a long moment. "You want me to tell Earth that helping you is in their self-interest?" "Yes, I have no pride left, Dr. Price. I will use whatever argument might work." She agreed to send the message. It reached Earth 2 days later, transmitted through secure channels that bypassed official diplomatic networks. Secretary General Burke read the message in her private office. She shared it with her cabinet and with the senior commanders of the Earth fleet. The debate lasted for hours. Some argued for intervention. Admiral was right. A victory would destabilize the entire galaxy. Eventually, that instability would threaten Earth itself. Better to fight now, alongside weakened allies, than to fight later alone. Others disagreed. Lisa Warren, now Deputy Secretary of Defense, spoke against intervention. "If we save them now, nothing changes," she said. "They will thank us, use us, and then fear us again. The cycle repeats forever. We have to break the cycle. We have to let them understand, truly understand what they lost." Burke listened to both sides. She thought about the dead. She thought about the living. She thought about the future. In the end, she made a decision. "We will send humanitarian aid," she announced. "Medical ships, supply vessels, refugee support, no military forces. We will help the innocent, but we will not fight their war." The humanitarian fleet departed Earth within a week. 12 ships, clearly marked with neutral symbols, carrying food and medicine and hope. They arrived at the refugee stations and began their work without fanfare or demands. Council species watched in confusion. The humans were helping but not fighting. They were healing wounds but not preventing new ones. It was a message, but many did not understand it. The commanders understood. They saw the human ships and paused their advance. If humans were returning, even in a limited capacity, the calculus of war changed. Were more ships coming? Was this the beginning of intervention? They decided to wait and see. In that pause, the dying galaxy caught its breath. And slowly, painfully, the Council began to understand what humanity was trying to teach them. Help freely given was a gift. Help demanded and taken for granted was a chain. And humanity would never wear chains again. 20 months after the withdrawal, the war ended. It did not end with a glorious victory or a crushing defeat. It ended with exhaustion. They had conquered 11 Council worlds, but their supply lines were stretched thin and their forces were depleted. The Council had lost a quarter of its territory, but the remaining systems had finally organized an effective defense. Neither side could continue. Both sides needed peace. The question was, who would negotiate that peace? Secretary General Burke received the formal request on a cold morning in Geneva. The Galactic Council asked humanity to serve as mediator for the peace talks, not as a combatant, not as an ally, but as a neutral party trusted by neither side to favor the other. It was, in its way, an admission of something profound. The galaxy still believed in human fairness, human judgment, human integrity. Even after everything that had happened, they trusted humanity to be honest. Burke considered the request for 3 days, then she made a call. Daniel Cole had retired to a small house on the coast of Maine. He spent his days reading, walking on the beach, and trying not to think about the galaxy he had left behind. He was 60 years old now, tired in ways that sleep could not fix. When the call came, he almost did not answer. "Daniel," Burke said, "I need you to do something for me." "I am retired, Madam Secretary." "I know, but there is no one else I trust for this. The Council has asked us to mediate peace talks with the... I want you to represent Earth." Cole was silent for a long moment. He thought about the assembly hall, the green lights, the sash he had left on the podium. He thought about the words he had spoken and the silence that followed. "I will do it," he said finally. "Not for them, for the people who will die if the war continues." The peace talks were held on a neutral station at the edge of known space. Representatives from the Confederation sat on one side of the table. Representatives from the Galactic Council sat on the other. Daniel Cole sat at the head, with the authority to shape the discussion but not to dictate terms. High Arbiter was there, humbled and diminished. Admiral attended as military advisor, her grief hidden behind a mask of professionalism. Trade Minister came to advocate for economic provisions that might save what remained of commerce. The negotiations lasted 6 weeks. Cole worked tirelessly, shuttling between the two sides, finding common ground where none seemed to exist. He used every skill he had developed over 30 years of diplomacy, every trick and technique and hard-won insight. In the end, they reached an agreement that would keep 4 of the conquered worlds, those that had been sparsely populated and held little strategic value. The remaining 7 would be returned to Council control. Prisoner exchanges would follow. Trade routes would be established. A demilitarized zone would separate the two powers. It was not a perfect peace, but it was peace. After the final document was signed, approached Cole privately. They stood together on an observation deck, watching the stars that had nearly been torn apart by war. Ambassador Cole began, "I owe you an apology not as High Arbiter as myself." Cole waited. "I was afraid of humanity. Your species is so young, so aggressive, so unpredictable. You accomplish things that should be impossible. You survive situations that should be fatal. You fight with a ferocity that terrifies those who witness it. And so you voted to chain us." "Yes," lowered his head. "It was wrong, not just strategically wrong, but morally wrong. You gave us everything and we repaid you with betrayal. I am sorry." Cole considered the apology. He could reject it, throw it back in the face of the being who had helped destroy the alliance humanity had spent 2 centuries building. Part of him wanted to do exactly that. But another part of him remembered why he had become a diplomat in the first place. Not to win arguments, but to build bridges. "I accept your apology," Cole said. "But words are easy, High Arbiter. Trust must be rebuilt through actions. That will take time." "Will humanity rejoin the Council?" "No," Cole shook his head. "That chapter is closed. We will maintain friendly relations. We will trade. We will cooperate when our interests align. But we will never again be members of an organization that sees us as a threat to be managed rather than a partner to be valued." Nodded slowly. "I understand. I wish things were different." "So do I," Cole said, "but they are not." The peace treaty was formally 1 week later, from the contested worlds. The Council began the long process of rebuilding, and humanity returned to its own space, watching from a distance. Captain Amy Nelson commanded one of the first joint patrol missions, 6 months after the treaty. Her ship, the Steadfast, flew alongside a cruiser through the demilitarized zone. It was a small mission, a symbolic gesture meant to show that cooperation was still possible. She stood on the bridge and watched the stars slide past. The captain had been professional, even friendly. They had shared meals together, exchanged stories, found common ground. It was not trust, not yet, but it was a beginning. Lisa Warren visited her after the patrol ended. They sat together in a small bar on the Earth station, drinking quietly and watching the ships come and go. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Lisa asked. "Withdrawing, I mean, letting them suffer." Amy thought about the question. She thought about the worlds that had burned, the lives that had been lost, the pain that could have been prevented if humanity had simply forgiven and forgotten. "I do not know if it was right," she said finally, "but I know it was necessary. They had to learn that we are not tools to be used and discarded. They had to understand that our help was a gift, not an obligation. And now we see if they learn the lesson. We give them a chance to prove that they value us as partners, not just as protectors. And if they prove it, maybe someday things can be different. Lisa nodded, a new beginning. Yes, Amy raised her glass, a new beginning on our terms this time. They drank together as the stars wheeled overhead, ancient and indifferent to the small dramas of the species that lived among them. Humanity had withdrawn in silence, and in that silence, the galaxy had finally learned to listen.